why are we going through all that we are being asked to go through. So let me give you some prelude to this. Not going to go into any detailed anatomy lessons here. I just want you to understand that every food you swallow, every beverage you drink, every pill you take goes down the food pipe into the stomach, goes into the intestine. The intestine digests all those items and takes whatever is necessary for you to the liver. So the liver is the ultimate processing plant. If you look at it from from a distance, this looks like the root system of the tree. This looks like the major tree trunk. And so that looks like a tree with all the branches and sub-branches and twigs and stems and leaves. So that's what the, your visual of the liver should be. It's like a tree that takes everything from its roots and utilizes it. So how does it do that? If you get down to the individual twigs and stems and leaves and look at it under the microscope, a very interesting landscape unfolds. It's like a Google Earth map where you see these row houses of liver cells. And blue, I should say red is the blood coming in. So that's like the traffic coming into this neighborhood. Blue or purple is the traffic leaving the neighborhood. And green is your sewage system, which collects the waste. So those are the bile ducts. So I'll come back to this in a second because it will make sense why I'm bringing all this up. So let's take one of these little row houses or small houses and look at it under the microscope. It's a very, very busy house. There's a lot of things going on. There is cooking, cleaning, all sorts of processing going on. So when a food molecule or a beverage molecule or a pill molecule comes to the surface of the liver cell, it's brought inside through certain special channels. And then it's worked on by these chemicals, as far as processing goes, called liver enzymes. So when you see blood test results, you hear AST, ALT, ALP, GGT. That's what the liver enzymes are. They are within the structure of the liver cell. They exist within the liver cell. So you can see that this is a very powerful processing plant. It's kind of like your standard battery that you have. This battery gives you power to run your house. So just like that, if I said, I want to run the power to the building you're living in only with AAA batteries, you look at me and say, how is that possible? But that's how the liver does it. Each one of these cells is its own processing plant, but together, their combined power makes the liver the most powerful organ in terms of being able to process, because there are trillions. Imagine trillions of AAA batteries are running the power to your house or to your neighborhood or to your town, what have you. That's exactly what the liver is doing. So when that thought occurs to you, okay, there are a lot of batteries. Well, clearly, batteries have limited power. At some point, the power has to, they run out of juice and you have to put a new battery in. So that's exactly what's happening in the liver. There's normal turnover taking place as you're sitting right now. There'll be an old dying battery or liver cell being broken down, and a brand new healthy liver cell will take its place. So it's like nothing ever happened. So you can imagine if this process takes place over years, because it will take years to replace trillions of batteries, or in months, if you will. So clearly the liver you have now is not the same liver you had 2 or 3 years ago. It's not the same liver you're going to have 2 or 3 years from now. This is the only solid organ that is capable of completely regenerating itself. Old goes away, new comes in. So when the old cells die, they break open. Forget my rudimentary attempts at making a cartoon here. So when they break open, there's recycling going on. There's constant recycling going on in the body. So this AST and this ALT fall into the bloodstream, because if you remember that picture, every cell has a blood vessel adjacent to it. There is not one cell that does not have a blood vessel adjacent to it. So from a recycling standpoint, every cell that dies yields the contents of itself, in this case, liver enzymes. So when we draw blood and we check the liver enzyme level, it's not never going to be zero. Some days, I mean, if you took the blood test now, it could be 35, 40, something like that, because there is a normal range. How do they calculate the range? It's funny how the labs do it. They get 100 people who come into the lab who are supposedly healthy, and they just average the number from the, they measure AST and ALT in those 100 people, and then they average it. And they say that's the normal range for that lab. And they keep recalibrating their machines accordingly. So this is what we consider normal turnover. But unfortunately, in the context of liver disease, there is abnormal turnover. Remember, when there is no liver disease, one cell goes away, one cell goes back into the liver. So it's a 1-to-1 ratio. Whereas when there is liver damage, there could be many liver cells getting damaged, but only one cell is replacing them. So when we draw the blood, that time we see the level is high, and we wonder, why is the level high? Because there is more turnover in the liver. So you look at a number and say, hey, my number is 200, that other person's number is only 100. Does that mean I'm having double the turnover of that person? No, because there is no mathematical equation that says this much turnover should be reflected in terms of labs. If that same person, you draw the labs 5 minutes later, the turnover will be different, because the liver releases dead and dying liver cells when it wants to. It doesn't have any algorithmic or mathematical, obvious equation that says you can calculate at any given time what the release of liver cells is. But the more important thing to remember in that context is only one liver cell is going to replace, while multiple liver cells are being damaged. So that may not mean anything when you've got trillions of liver cells. But at some point, if this process goes on unchecked, then you're going to lose liver volume. And as you progressively lose liver volume, as the building, you have a 30 or 40 floor building with hundreds of rooms, and suddenly you're down to only 10 floors or maybe 5 floors, then you've got a problem. Then you've got a very serious problem. So what causes this abnormal turnover? Anything can do that. Alcohol can do that. Medications, if you take consistently, that damage the liver, that can do that. Viral hepatitis A, B, and C can do that. There are other conditions that are unusual, which I don't need to go into, but anything and everything that hurts the liver, this is how it manifests. There is turnover, increased turnover of liver cells relative to replacement. And that's reflected in your labs. But these labs only indicate that there is something going on. They're like a flashing red light. They don't indicate that there is no proportional equivalent saying, okay, if this much turnover is going on, it should be reflected in the labs. So I want you to be cognizant of that, because sometimes people see the labs and they see 3 digits, 100, 200, 300, and they get very concerned that something bad is going on. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are situations where the labs can go to in the thousands. That's a serious situation. But I'm talking about chronic liver disease. I'm not talking about someone who was fine yesterday and suddenly has liver disease today because they ate some mushrooms or took some pills or something like that. That's a different situation completely. So be that as it may, in our context, what we are discussing today is what is the consequence of having fatty liver disease. So let's go back to that liver cell that you remember from here. That liver cell was happy and conducting life as it knew it. Now it has got all these unpleasant occupants, all people that it does not want within its space. And these guys being unwelcome, what happens? The liver cries for help. So white blood cells, defender white blood cells, are sent by the immune system through the blood to attack this fat. But the problem is the fat is inside the liver cell. So the battleground is the liver cell. So the consequence is what? It becomes damaged. And so there is turnover. So the AST and the ALT leak in some cases. So now you can see that cartoon progressing here. If there's a little bit of fat, it's not bad. If there is a lot of fat, that's a problem. That's where we call it fatty liver disease. If there is so much fat that the white blood cells are coming and injuring the area, we use the suffix itis. So hepatitis means injury to the liver. It doesn't mean hepatitis A, B, or C. It just means injury to the liver. In this case, because of S, because of steatosis. So when there is damage, so much damage relative to replacement, there are tens of liver cells are dying, only one is going on. So the liver says, okay, what can I do? Let me replace the vacant areas with scar tissue in the form of collagen fibers. And so as this process goes on unchecked, it can lead to cirrhosis of the liver. So now you have a background as to the consequences of that extra fat being inside your liver cell. Well, how did the extra fat get into your liver cell? What did you or any person do to allow that fat to get into the liver cell? Because the liver cell is purely designed for its own business. It has no room for anything other than itself. But now it is, under duress, hosting all this extra fat. So that's where the concept comes in. We call it non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. But people are like, but how does it happen in somebody who is not necessarily very obese or doesn't have elevated liver tests that are very high or anything like that? Why do you insist on calling it fatty liver disease? Could it be because it's really part of an overall syndrome, that it is a situation where it is not just fatty liver in isolation, but it's part of a metabolic syndrome that's induced by obesity? Or sometimes it may not be obesity, it may be genetics, so a whole lot of things. So heart disease, cholesterol problems, high blood pressure, in some cases polycystic ovarian syndrome, cancer risk is higher in such people, dementia risk is higher in such people. So this is a syndrome that is capturing so much attention that as liver specialists, we are saying it's ridiculous to talk about NAFLD in a vacuum. It really should be called MAFL. Now, of course, you'll be like, great, all this time you guys were educating us about NAFL, now you're creating MAFL. Is it just semantics? What's the big deal? Yeah, in a sense, it's semantics, but it's important for us because we need to recognize this and educate our patients that really we have to look at you from a broad perspective, not just from the perspective of the liver. We have to look at you as someone who could have multiple other issues that are subtly gaining ground. And so by you helping yourself to lose weight, not only are you improving your liver, but you're also improving a whole host of other issues. So, Praveen keeps saying, so many patients are inquiring that they are not obese. How can they have fatty liver? How can they have fatty liver? Well, let me give myself as the perfect example. I'm 6 feet tall and I'm 185 pounds, give or take. So my BMI in America is about 25, 25.2 or something like that. But in India, the BMI number really should be north of 22 to call it fatty liver in a woman and north of 23 in a male. So be that as it may, for me, my BMI is pipping the post at 25. So I say, okay, good, I'm not obese. How come when they did a fibroscan on me, they found steatosis? I don't have diabetes. But I look at these things and I say, this could be an issue. Now, waist circumference of 94 centimeters, which is 37 inches. My waist circumference is 36. 80 centimeters is 31 inches. So in a woman, if you're more than 31 inches waist circumference, that would put you in the fatty liver bracket or the metabolic associated fatty liver bracket. If your blood pressure is north of what is considered normal consistently and you're taking medication, that puts you there. This is my bugaboo. My plasma triglycerides are in the 200s. So that's an issue. And ironically, despite me exercising half an hour a day, my HDL is barely touching 40. It must be something genetic, in my opinion, because these two are often genetically linked. my mother is a dietitian and she frets that I'm pre-diabetic because there are a lot of diabetics in my family. I won't get into what the homeostatic assessment for insulin resistance is, only to tell you that it exists, and it's an expensive test because you have to measure your insulin levels and all. And if you do, we can calculate it very easily for you. It's available on mdcalc.com. So if you actually have your insulin levels, you have your CRP levels, and if they're elevated, we can talk about it. Of course, CRP gained some notoriety recently in India because in the context of COVID-19 infections, a lot of people's CRP was up. That goes to show you this is a non-specific test. Anything there's inflammation in your body, the CRP will go up. If it's an infection, if it's metabolic associated fatty liver disease. So you cannot hang your hat only on this. So I have MAFLD because my BMI is slightly above 25 and I have plasma triglycerides that are above 150 and my HDL is not optimal. So I have metabolic associated fatty liver disease without necessarily being obese. So in my case, the lipid problems and the fatty liver disease does affect my future risk of longevity or mortality. I mean, I could develop heart disease in the future, like many members of my family. My blood pressure is normal. There are people in my family who have polycystic ovarian syndrome. There are people in my family who have thyroid issues. And certainly they have hypertension. My mother has hypertension. My mother has heart disease. So my mother is 110 pounds soaking wet. I mean, she's so thin, but she already has this. So clearly there's a very strong genetic basis to this. But I wanted to introduce you to the concept of metabolic associated fatty liver disease, that we shouldn't look at fatty liver disease in a vacuum. And this could explain several people with what they call lean fatty liver. So now that you have a background on what the liver does for a living, how the liver does it, and what is the normal turnover, what is considered abnormal turnover, what's happening in the context of fatty liver disease, you have an understanding of what metabolic associated fatty liver disease is. There's some interesting calculations to figure that out. Let me put a stark picture on for you. So this was a commercial, this was an ad that was in all the US journals for liver disease. If Hep C was attacking your face instead of your liver, you would do something about it. It's a pretty dramatic picture, ready to fight back or something. So why don't I do this? Why don't I just take this and put it here? If MAFLD was attacking your face instead of your liver, you would do something about it, right? So that's the point we're trying to make. Right now, your liver is not all of yours, but I mean, anybody who has advanced liver disease, the liver is getting beaten up really badly. So we have to do something about it. And what is that something? We keep, you say, oh my God, there he goes again with this weight loss thing. We're not doing this to make you feel bad. We're doing this to tell you that there is solid scientific background for this. How do we have scientific background? They did this study. It's very interesting to liver specialists. It's very frightening to people who with liver disease. This was a study done in Cuba. The medical ethics in Cuba, I'm not going to get into an argument about it, but somehow they convinced a bunch of patients who they identified on a liver biopsy as having just mild fat with those white blood cells attacking, really advanced fat with inflammation and slight deposition of scar tissue, and then severe scar tissue deposition just before cirrhosis. Then they made them lose, uniformly made them lose weight, and then they did another liver biopsy after some time. As it is, doing one liver biopsy is a big deal in the US. Doing a second liver biopsy several months later, one would question the ethics of that in the US, but be that as it may, it provided us valuable information because now you understand why Novo Liver harps on this number. This is our critical number because at this number, we know you are going to get rid of the scar tissue in your liver. So you say, okay, great. He has talked about weight loss. He has given us a sense of what it's going to take in terms of percentage weight loss relative to where my liver is in the scheme of things. So, okay, doc, how do we do this? I can't change my genetics or your genetics. So that's a red signal. I can't do anything there. A yellow signal is, could we be changing the good and bad bacteria in your system, the relative proportion of the good and bad bacteria in your system? Absolutely. And you say how? By taking pills or by going and buying Bifilac from the chemist from the drugstore, or buying some expensive probiotic, or just taking dahi, yogurt all the time? No. We know that actually changing your diet changes the balance of good and bad bacteria. Proof in this regard is people who eat meat consistently, like in the US, and have a lot of refined foods, a lot of processed foods. It's fascinating what their microbiome profile is like. It's completely different from, say, me, who is a pure vegetarian and but not vegan. I still take yogurt and milk. Our profile is completely different, and we use Indian herbs and spices, like turmeric and so many other things. Our microbiome is completely different. But my microbiome is different from my Indian cousins, my cousins who are in India, because the food is not as processed as it is in the US. So clearly diet can benefit this. So that's why I'm going to give this a yellow, not a hard red. But in the future, there, once we do more research, maybe we can give you pills that are of the beneficial microbiome that improves your body's ability to deal with fat. So I think you see the pattern here in terms of the 4 pillars: diet, activity, psychology, sleep, all have to be addressed. And so in that context, our program is evidence-based and data-driven. We look at your medical metrics. We're interested in what your labs look like and what your ultrasound looks like, your fibroscan looks like before you start the program, several months into the program, and hopefully well after the program, to show you that we have actually reversed your fatty liver disease. Because at the end of the day, we are about extending your lifespan, not about making you look good in a dress. This was just pun intended. It was so funny. Somebody took this picture of, they got pakoda, I think, from a roadside dabba, and ironically, the sheet that was underneath, clearly the person eating this did not read the underlying message that someone was trying to send him. So with that, I'll stop, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions or thoughts, or anything you want to share. If I can help you with it, I'll be happy to do so.
What I recommend is I invite all of you to join by video. It won't be very long. So if you can join by video and take advantage of Dr. Arjun's presence here, ask him the questions that you have, the doubts that you have, big or small, doesn't matter. If it is pertaining to the topic at hand, great. But if you want to go around the topic, that is also fine. But please do take advantage of it.
Praveen, can my mom ask a question?
Please.
Sure. Welcome. Hi, Neela. Good to see you.
Hi, nice to see you, Dr. Arjun. My mom's a pediatrician, so she was also listening with interest to this talk. I'm just giving the phone.
Wonderful.
Hi. Thanks so much for all the information that
Nothing you don't already know, doctor.
No. There's a lot I don't know. I have read a book called The Obesity Code. The Obesity Code, and it talks a lot about overnight fasting as helping your fatty liver. Is there some truth in that? What is the physiology behind that?
If I had to think about it, I would say that there is some science behind it. I have read it. I can't expound on it much further than what you've already read, but it may have to do with the fact that, Praveen will tell you that we have noticed, and I have a cartoon on that somewhere. I just don't know where I put it. I can show it to you. The circadian rhythm, no? So we, as you know, the steroid hormones that we produce during the day, whereas we don't produce those hormones when we're resting. So could it be that if you say my last meal is at 6 in the evening and I'm not going to eat anything till 6 in the morning, then that is going to help in terms of the balance of,
Glycogen storage. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think it has to do with the steroid hormones in the circadian rhythm and how that relates to insulin. That would be my rudimentary scientific answer to that question.
Okay. So do we need to do insulin levels in these people with fatty liver? Is there some correlation between that?
There is certainly correlation, because if you can measure the insulin, and obviously you measure the fasting glucose in most patients when you do a routine chemistry. If you just go to the internet and type HOMA-IR. So HOMA is homeostatic assessment of insulin resistance. So HOMA-IR, you'll get a link. I think one of the top Google links will say mdcalc.com. So on mdcalc.com, you put your insulin level and you put your glucose level there. It will give you a score. If the score is above 2.5, that means you have very high insulin resistance. So no question about it. You have, because if you look at insulin resistance, the spectrum, I'm sorry guys, we're getting into a medical discussion here, so I apologize. But at one end of the spectrum is fatty liver, the other end of the spectrum is diabetes, no? In insulin resistance, as you well know. So we need to know where you are. But insulin levels are expensive. I don't want all of you to go and get that blood test. That's, I'm sure, 2 or 3 times more than a routine metabolic panel. Yeah, so if you have the means and you're terribly curious and your doctor doesn't mind ordering that blood test for you, why not? The more information, the better. But is it necessary to document that? No, not really.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, doctor.
Yeah, no, happy to see you. And how are you doing? You're on your way, I think.
Just so close yet so far. I'm like just, a short way away from that 10% milestone. So hopefully this week.
No worries. No worries. You have to put the image of the foodie, and right next to the image of the foodie, you have to put that picture of that face getting beaten up and say, which one do I want to be? The foodie face, or do I want to be the face that's getting beaten up?
It's a good one. Maybe I'll try that. Maybe you can send us that image.
Yeah, just do that visualization technique. Like, I don't want to be this. I want to be happy. I don't want to look like that guy who's getting beaten up. Yeah, I don't know, Praveen, if I violated some copyright rule. I mean, I didn't cut where the source of that ad came from. I just put NAFLD instead of hepatitis C.
No, it's very powerful. It's exactly what it is, but we don't see it that way.
Yeah, because we can't see, we can't see the liver, because the liver masks things until 60 to 70% of it is completely. It's like the tree, until so many leaves fall off the tree, you think the tree is doing a good job. It looks fine. So that's the point. How are you, Madhu? Good to see you again.
Thanks, Dr.
Yeah, we are very happy to see your numbers. Praveen sends us your numbers and updates us. So thank you for being such a good adherent of the program. We are thrilled to see how well you're doing.
Thank you. No, I think that face is a powerful message. So
isn't it? Yeah, I think we have to ask that company Roche for a copyright assignment, and then we're going to put it in all our presentations.
And I have seen it over and over in my family as well, right? People actually going through those very difficulties. So I think many of these, I think definitely that I guess back of the mind that fear is there, but it's not just fear. I think the more awareness you have, I think it is fantastic. I think reading up all that, that Michael Greger's book, and so much of information which being a techie, I thought I pretty much knew everything on the internet, but there's such a vital information I didn't know, right? So I think it is really an eye opener for me to go through this and understand a lot of these information. Definitely, hopefully, like you said, the gene part, I don't think we can do, but all those other buckets we can try and do as much as possible.
Yeah, definitely. We cannot change nature, but at least we can change nurture. So that will be the way we would do it. Any other questions? Or I welcome comments. I see some names. I hope you don't mind if I call upon you. Arshdeep, I hear from Praveen that you're always very curious and you're always thoughtful and absorb a lot of information. So please share any thoughts that you have.
I had a query that high intake of protein can also affect the liver.
So let's think about that. You have to look at it very, very simply. How much energy does your body need per day to run? How much fuel does the engine need to run? If you put more than that much fuel, the excess has to be retained somewhere. The liver does the retention. So whether you provide it in the form of protein, it's different fuels, right? Protein is like jet fuel, and carbohydrates are like your regular kerosene, and fat is luxury, like the petrol that you get in the petrol bunk. So you have to decide, if you mix these three volatiles together, whatever the proportion may be, if you put more in than your body is burning, then it goes to the liver. The liver preferentially takes it. The liver takes every molecule of sugar you take and converts it into fat and leaves it inside the liver. Did you know the liver is the organ in the body that manufactures cholesterol? Were you aware of that?
No, I was not.
So now you know why genetically people who have high cholesterol, it's sort of a vicious circle. They make more cholesterol, then it's deposited in the liver, which gets damaged, which, unfortunately, it's making more. So think about it that way. Now, if you told me, look, doc, I know I'm burning 2,500 calories a day, and I'm providing more from protein, but I'm cutting down the fat and the carbohydrate side, then I say, okay, then you're good, because net, the amount of energy you've derived from those three fuels is the same, correct?
Right, got it.
So you have to decide if you're going to put high quality fuel like jet fuel and less of low quality fuel like kerosene and petrol. Wonderful, as long as the total amount of fuel is burnt properly.
Right, got it, doctor. Yeah. Thanks for that.
So wonderful. Eat as much protein as you can, but that also means you have to back off the protein, the carbohydrate and the fat.
Got it. Because I asked this question because from last 2-3 years I was concentrating only on protein foods, and then when my liver started getting affected, this is what I think. I'm not sure about it. So I thought maybe that's the reason. But yes, I was not calculating the amount of food I'm eating. So that could be the main reason.
Yeah, I'd venture to suggest that you did not necessarily dial down your carbohydrate and your fat proportionally to account for that extra protein.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? I see a name, Surhita Basu. I'm sorry, we have not been introduced. No comments. Sometimes people are shy to talk. Hi.
Yeah, I was just listening to the discussion, and it's quite enlightening. Thank you for this talk. So it's just the beginning of the journey. So good to know about this, mechanism behind it, why it has happened and all those. I was wondering if you can explain that these terms that SGOT, SGPT and GGTP, if these are high and if others are low, one is high, another one is low, then what does it mean?
Okay,
like low means under a certain ratio.
Yeah, there are certain instances where the number can be even below the quoted range, which is surprising to some people. How can the liver enzymes be so low? Does it mean my liver is not manufacturing those enzymes? Is it not releasing those enzymes? That can confuse people. I don't want to get into a big discussion on that, but just remember, AST or SGOT is an enzyme that's present in muscle cells and liver cells. So if you have a muscle injury, you just played a game of football and you came and you've been thumped around or you've had so much effort you've put into the game, you come in as soon as you finish the football game, if I measure your AST or SGOT levels, they will be high because you have sustained muscle injury, because that chemical is within the muscle. But if I measure your ALT or SGPT levels, they will be normal. So that's how that tells me that this SGOT came from the muscle and it didn't come from the liver. But if both numbers are elevated and you didn't do any physical exercise, then I have to wonder whether that came from your liver or not. Now, as far as the other two chemicals that are concerned, the other two enzymes, the one is called alkaline phosphatase, ALP, and the other one's called GGT. Those are enzymes that are also within the liver. Actually, they hug the surface of the liver, and they can also go up in people with liver injury, but they typically go up in people whose the plumbing of the liver. If you remember that picture of the liver I showed you, the blue is the blood vessel taking away and red is the blood vessel bringing in, but then you saw green, which is like the sewage system, the plumbing, no, the pipes that take away the sewage. So the alkaline phosphatase, ALP, and the GGT preferentially go up in people who have a blockage of their sewage pipes. Okay. So if that is very high and the AST and ALT are fairly close to the upper limit of normal, then that means something is blocking the flow of the sewage from your liver. So that's when we do an ultrasound and say, oh, maybe you have a gallstone that's blocking something. And then we, say, oh, you might have a gallbladder problem, something like that. But these are not hard and fast rules. Just remember that in your case, or in a case of anyone who's attending today's session, if the SGOT, also known as AST, and the SGPT, also known as the ALT, are up, then more than likely you have a liver injury. Okay, but that can happen one time, and then the next time it can be normal, then the next time it can be high, then the next time it can be normal. Because the liver is very capricious in terms of what it does. It can do this, the labs can go like this. But, I mean, I tease Pranoti about this all the time, because Pranoti's family members are in the stock market. So I ask her, how's the stock market? She says, it's down. So I say, no, it's like this. So you have to look at the trend. If the AST and the ALT are high, then they go down, then they go high, then they go down. But then they're consistently, you see the slope going like this, even though the jog is like this. If you see the slope going like this, that's a trend. Huh? So you have to look at the trend. So that's why we always like, before we diagnose someone with a liver problem, we like to know what their labs were 6 months ago, 3 months ago, now, so that we can see what the trend is. If the trend is going like this, then we know something's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. I'm not sure if I have fully answered your question. I'd be more than happy to talk to you offline also. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Happy to share any anecdotes or questions or concerns.
Hello, doctor. I'm Rukmini. I'm Hari's wife.
Yes,
He's on a call.
We know. We remember you very well. How are you?
He's on a call, so I'm good. I'm good. So Hari has started, and my concern is like what to give him and what not to give him. Like we are not yet into the diet
phase of it.
So,
yeah, I mean, it's okay. Another few days he will start the diet phase, and then he.
Okay.
Yeah. So just keep the diet modest. Not that Hari is someone who eats extravagantly, but try to keep it modest in terms of, like, Janmashtami came. My wife made halwa, and I was like, oh God, I have to eat this. This looks good, but she gave me only one small cup. She didn't give me the whole big bowl. So like that, be modest and see what, once he gets on the diet, he'll be in good shape.
Okay. Thank you, doctor.
Yeah,
please remind Hari of his homework submission if he is interested in getting started.
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And you can't do the homework for him. Huh? Like, you are attending the call for him. You can't do the homework for him now.
No. I'll make sure that he does it.
Yeah, no substitutes allowed.
No.
I'm just teasing. All right. Anybody else have any other thoughts or any other questions? Happy to answer.
Arjun, I just want to tell you who here for your understanding.
Yeah.
Hafsa is, she joined along with Madhu last month, and Bharti is current batch, Amit is current batch. Hafsa, do you have any questions for Dr. Arjun? Unmute yourself. She is also making very good progress. Like,
Hello, doctor.
Hi, I'm so proud of you because I was so happy when you shared with the group about how before you had difficulty doing namaz in the proper position, and now you're able to do it after such a long time. And I was saying, my God, we should use that as a testimonial, like a ad or something for us. See, they can do namaz now properly.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Actually, previously I used to just sit on the chair and perform my namaz, and also my husband was always very sad. Though he was not very happy about me joining this program, but when he started me doing the namaz and all, he's like quite happy they have done it now. And then secondly, I have stopped my diabetes medicine completely. I'm monitoring my diabetes daily with the urine strips also, which shows me the ketone level, the glucose level, and I'm also monitoring on my glucometer blood test, like the strips also. So I'm finding my diabetes is now 125, 140 after the milkshake or any salad and everything. Otherwise, it is in the level of 98 and 90s now. But previously, it was when I started having diabetes, it was 300.
Oh
Then
my
it
God.
went, yeah, then it was everywhere near 198. Now, since 1 month approximately is passed away, but I'm not having any of my diabetes medicine because I don't think I need them anymore.
But if you don't mind, please check with your doctor about that, because I don't want you to arbitrarily stop medicine without a physician giving you advice. He may still want you to take it at a lower dose, because truth be told, I'll be thrilled if you were in the 80s and 90s. So consistently. So you please check with your doctor, because or you may have already checked with your doctor. I don't know.
In 90s only after having a full stomach of milkshake or some kind of a zucchini pasta or anything, it reaches 125 and little above. But otherwise, it is in a normal range right now. And previously, without that medicine, I used to feel dizzy and everything. Like, could not stay only without the medicine. It was a habit, like for me. But now I don't think I need it because I feel active and I feel fine without the medicine.
No, what you think is very good. We want you to have a positive mindset about it. But I just want your physician to bless you in that regard, because don't take my word for it. I'm not supposed to give you medical advice. So you kindly get your physician to endorse that.
Yeah, I am completely monitoring it day in, day out. In fact, even I am monitoring my urine strips and my blood, everything I'm monitoring day in and out.
No, inshallah, your diabetes will be in full control. That's not the concern. The concern is that you should have a doctor just sort of give you a chit saying, you're on the right track. Very good. I'm glad that you stopped the medicine, because there may be a role for a very low dose of those medicines also. How's your blood pressure doing?
I never had a blood pressure problem, I guess.
Issue? Okay. That's good. Yeah, I think when you go to see the doctor in 3 months, you can do that hemoglobin A1C level. If he said, because it takes about 4 months, for that to change. So 4 months after your previous lab in that regard, it will be nice to see where you were before and where you are now. It'd be fascinating to see that. Yeah.
But from 198, I am like in 90, fasting man. And so that is already a difference.
We are thrilled to hear that. Happy for you. Just keep up the good work. And when we see you a year from now, you will look completely different.
It's not easy, but yesterday I had this urge to eat so badly, and then we don't get food. Now, sometimes you break the whole anger on my husband or something, whatever, and you don't want to give them also dinner, and it is very difficult to, sometimes you really have this urge, you want to eat something very badly,
So in that context, I think, Praveen, isn't Cassie saying it's okay for them to have like cauliflower rice or vegetables or something?
Yeah, they do discuss it, and they discussed it last time. So
yeah.
Hafsa asked this question in the fuel pillar class, and see what Cassie says.
Yeah.
Because there may be an alternative for you rather than, condemning your husband to no dinner. I feel bad for him. So you kindly consider having some sort of, what should I say, sanctioned or approved snack that's approved by Cassie. So
I tried zucchini pasta,
So the pasta is made only of zucchini, not the carbohydrate is not there.
Nothing. Only zucchini, which is grated, which is in the form of noodles, and then it is garnished with almonds and all, So you get this from Eat Right by Chef Lab, something in they are health. Swiggy also has some health menus there, so they do make some zucchini pasta. So that was like only zucchini noodles inside.
If you have the information packet on it, or if there's a link for it, you take a picture of that and share it with Cassie, because she may be, if it's something that's valid, we can but recommend it to other people also.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, no, very happy, very proud of you. Excellent job.
So we have another 5 minutes before we wrap up. So I invite Bharati and Amit to say hi. I know you just joined. And if anybody has any other final questions, I think it's a good time to ask.
Pranuti, while they're thinking of their question, I need Ayushi's help to animate my liver cells for the next presentation.
I just say hello because
Yeah,
I just
sure.
joined today.
Oh, okay.
So just, I have no question. I was just a passive listener today, and I'm just trying to see that how and what we can do so that we meet our objectives and goals, what we are setting. So not anything more than this right now, I can say. And only one question I had, that when I can start my diet plan, or you will be recommending and advising me when to start it?
Yeah, Amit, we'll have to do the one-on-one first. I think Pranuti might have sent you a link. So schedule one-on-one. After we do the one-on-one, after you complete all the assignments, then we determine a start date for the, as far as the diet is concerned. So my guess is, we'll get into next week. So we'll be on the lookout for you. From your end, you just do as per the checklist. Yeah.
So no more question. Thank you so much. I just joined and listening to the advice and suggestions. So I hope that we will be meeting it out. I will work very seriously on that.
Great.
Yeah, you'll be an active participant in the group soon, and we hope to hear more about you. Fantastic to have you join. Thank you. Excellent. Looking forward to a very positive resolution of your fatty liver. I believe there's Mrs. Bharati still on the phone, on the call.
Yeah. She might be. I'd seen her earlier, when we had started. Bharati has a variation of the body pillar. So she is the one currently who started on the Yogasana side. So she had her intro class yesterday. But I don't know if she's on the call right now. Bharati, if you're there, please feel free to unmute and come on video and say hi. Okay. So if there are no other questions, then we'll begin to wrap up this session. Let me first stop the recording. Thank you, Dr. Arjun. Very enjoyable as usual.